She gave her best friend a business, her trust, and her heart. But what she got in return was the kind of betrayal that rips through bloodlines. What do you do when the two people you love most choose each other over you? She trusted them blindly, until the night they wore matching outfits meant for her, and announced their love like it was a fairy tale, not the nightmare it truly was. Once upon a time in the heart of Cape Town, South Africa, there lived an elegant and beautiful young woman named Mirabelle, who resided in a luxurious estate with her twin brother, Marcus. Marcus held a high-ranking position in the government, a strategic advisor to the president himself, and his influence reached far and wide. As a result, Mirabelle lived a life most women could only dream of, flying in private jets, dining in the finest restaurants, wearing designer clothes, and owning a thriving interior decor business. Despite being self-sufficient, Mirabelle never had to lift a finger, as Marcus ensured she lacked nothing. Their bond was unbreakable, almost sacred. They shared everything and trusted each other deeply. Mirabelle's closest friend, Tosha, was like a sister to her. Tosha often accompanied her on her lavish trips, helped with events, and even had her fashion boutique, all thanks to Mirabelle, who not only funded the startup but also introduced her to powerful clients and politicians. Grateful for her friend's generosity, Tosha showed her appreciation by designing all of Mirabelle's custom-made outfits, especially for special occasions. Knowing how much Marcus and Mirabelle loved wearing coordinated outfits, Tosha often designed matching ensembles for them, a symbolic gesture of their strong sibling bond. But one fateful evening changed everything. Mirabelle had just arrived home, eager to prepare for a prestigious dinner event she was attending with Marcus. She slipped into the dazzling outfit Tosha had crafted for her and descended the stairs, excited to see Marcus in his matching attire. But when she entered the living room, her smile froze. Marcus came down the stairs, not in the expected outfit, but wearing something completely different. Confused, Mirabelle asked, "What's going on?" Instead of answering, Marcus smiled slightly and gestured for her to turn around. Mirabelle spun only to find Tosha standing behind her, dressed in the matching outfit meant for her and Marcus. Her heart sank. Before she could even process the shock, Marcus stepped forward and calmly announced, "Tosha and I are getting married. Tonight's dinner is actually our engagement party." Mirabelle felt the floor fall from beneath her. She pulled Marcus aside, her voice trembling. "Is this some kind of joke?" Marcus shook his head. "We've been seeing each other for a year now. We just didn't know how to tell you." Mirabelle stumbled back, her breath short. "A year? You were in a relationship with my best friend behind my back?" Tosha stood silently, her face pale with guilt. "I didn't know how to break it to you," she whispered. Mirabelle's voice cracked as she snapped, "You knew how much my brother meant to me. You knew we told each other everything. And yet you hid this from me?" "I was scared," Tosha began. "Don't you dare play that scared card with me," Mirabelle cut her off, her voice sharp with betrayal. "You and Marcus deserve each other." With that, she turned and stormed to her room. The evening stretched on painfully. Marcus and Tosha left for the engagement party, smiling for cameras and greeting guests, but inside, both were haunted by guilt and unease. The celebration felt hollow. When they returned later that night, they were met with silence. The house was empty. Mirabelle was gone. Her room had been cleared out, her wardrobe, her perfumes, her handbags, and even her beloved Pomeranian, Luna, had vanished. Marcus ran through every room in disbelief, then drove to her office only to find it deserted as well. On her desk sat a folded letter. His hands shook as he opened it. "I gave you both my loyalty and love. You repaid me by keeping secrets and making a mockery of our bond. I now know I was never truly part of your future. So go ahead, live your perfect life without me. Marcus collapsed onto her desk, burying his head in his hands. Tasha stood frozen, trembling in the doorway. Do you think she'll come back? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. But Marcus said nothing. He couldn't. Because deep down, he knew the truth. Mirabelle was gone, and she wasn't coming back. That realization broke him. As for Tasha, the guilt gnawed at her more than she had expected. No matter how deep her feelings were for Marcus, she knew she had crossed a boundary that could never be uncrossed. Betraying the woman who had built her life from scratch was a wound that time itself could not mend. 3 days slipped by, and the once vibrant estate in Cape Town grew eerily quiet. There were no soft jazz tunes echoing through the hallways, no trace of Mirabelle's signature perfume in the air, and not a single sound of heels tapping against the glossy marble floors. Marcus became almost mute, buried in a thick fog of guilt and loss. Tasha, now carrying the heavy weight of their choices, tried to stay strong. She cooked, cleaned, and attempted to hold conversations, but Marcus had become distant, emotionally frozen, and unreachable. She watched the man she loved slip deeper into isolation, and no words or gestures could bring him back. Weeks trickled by, and still, there was no sign or word from Mirabelle. The silence was torture. Marcus was growing restless with worry, and he knew that his detachment was starting to take a toll on Tasha. As much as he loved her, he couldn't bear to see her suffer for their betrayal. In a moment of conflicted resolve, Marcus attempted to end things with her, but Tasha stopped him cold with a revelation that changed everything. I'm pregnant. The words hit Marcus like a bolt from the heavens. Staggered but oddly elated, he stood in silence before embracing the truth. He was going to be a father, something he had always longed for. And now, the woman he loved was carrying his child. But even with that surge of joy, a part of him still ached for Mirabelle. He had always imagined telling her first, seeing her light up with joy, and celebrating the moment as twins who had shared everything since birth. Determined to do right by Tasha and the baby, Marcus asked her to move in permanently. He wanted her safe, secure, and cared for. Perhaps, he thought, a shared home could slowly restore some of the joy they had lost. And surprisingly, it worked. Tasha blossomed. She took on the home with a new sense of purpose, redecorating, cooking, and even hand-painting the baby's nursery. She laughed again, and so did Marcus. The mansion, for a brief moment, felt like home once more. Marcus started shedding the weight of guilt that had hung on his shoulders like an anchor. But peace, it turned out, was only temporary. One crisp evening, after returning from a quiet dinner together, they noticed the mansion's front lights already on. Marcus's instincts flared. He leaped out of the car before it came to a complete stop, Tasha trailing behind him nervously. He swung the door open, and there she was. Mirabelle. Sitting regally in the living room, legs crossed, her gaze unwavering, her presence cold and commanding. Surprised to see me, she asked, her voice soft but cutting, her eyes glinting with unshed tears. You really thought I'd hand over my home to a tailor who snuck behind my back to seduce my own brother? Tasha opened her mouth to speak. Mirabelle, that's not. Don't say my name, Mirabelle cut her off sharply, raising a hand. You lost that right the day you betrayed me. Marcus stepped forward, guilt etched across his face like deep lines in stone. I'm sorry, Mirabelle. I never meant for it to happen this way. It's too late for sorry, she snapped. Then, her gaze hardened. You think she loves you, Marcus? She asked. Watch your back. You have no idea what you've invited into your life. With that, she turned and stormed toward her old bedroom, leaving them rooted in stunned silence. Tasha trembled. What does she mean by that? Marcus asked. How would I know? She replied, but something in her voice betrayed uncertainty. From the moment Mirabel returned, the atmosphere in the mansion shifted. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply resumed command, subtle, deliberate, and fierce. Out of guilt and fear of losing his sister once more, Marcus pleaded with her to stay. "You can take your room back. Nothing's changed between us," he said. But Mirabel wasn't interested in her room. She wanted the whole house, and that meant Tosha out. Thus, an invisible war began. The next morning, Mirabel cornered Tosha in the kitchen, her voice calm but icy. "Pack your things. Leave. And take my brother with you." Tosha stared her down, then gently rested a hand on her stomach. "It's too late for that. I'm pregnant with his child. Soon, we'll be married." Mirabel didn't blink. She merely stood, eerily quiet, then smiled. A slow, unsettling smile that never reached her eyes. "How lovely," she said, stepping closer, the echo of her heels clicking ominously across the floor. "So you think you've won?" Tosha was silent, unsure how to respond. "Name your price," Mirabel whispered. "Because we both know you're here for one thing." Tosha bristled. "No amount of money could ever make me give up my love for Marcus." Mirabel chuckled softly. "Keep telling yourself that." There was a storm behind her composed exterior, one that hadn't yet revealed its full force. And Tosha knew, in that moment, that the real battle had just begun. Mirabel let out a chilling, bitter laugh that echoed through the high-ceilinged lounge of the mansion. Her smile widened, but it was an empty void, devoid of any joy or warmth. She turned to face Tosha, her eyes gleaming with something darker than anger. "Does he know?" she asked. Tosha's heart dropped. Her lips parted, but no words came. She shook her head slowly, silently begging Mirabel to keep her silence. "Please," Tosha whispered, her voice cracking. "Please, don't tell Marcus. I never meant for any of this to happen. I love him. And he loves me. What we have is real. This baby, this child, is innocent. He doesn't deserve to pay for our mistakes. Please, don't do this to your unborn nephew." Mirabel narrowed her eyes and replied coldly, "My unborn nephew can rot for all I care. How do I even know that the baby is my brother's? You think I'm going to believe a word from you?" The words hit Tosha like a slap across the face. Her knees buckled slightly, her hands trembled at her sides, and tears spilled from her eyes as if a dam had broken. Yet, Mirabel remained unmoved, her posture rigid, her eyes as cold as ice. Days dragged on, each one thicker with tension than the last. Mirabel waited, certain that Tosha would pack her things and leave after the confrontation. But to her growing fury, Tosha stayed. So Mirabel took matters into her own hands. With the same sharp mind that once built Tosha's entire fashion empire, she made a few calls to the very political and elite contacts she had introduced Tosha to, painting a picture that Tosha's boutique was a smokescreen for illicit activity. She didn't need to say much. Within a week, the consequences rolled in like thunder. High-profile clients withdrew their partnerships. Contracts were revoked without notice. Financial investigators raided Tosha's boutique. Her accounts were flagged and frozen over claims she didn't understand. Suppliers stopped returning her calls. Her boutique, once bustling with celebrities and press, emptied out like a ghost town. Everything Mirabel had once given her, she now dismantled, brick by brick. Tosha was inconsolable. She cried endlessly, watching helplessly as her world, the one she had built with Mirabel's help, collapsed into ashes. And though Marcus had his suspicions, he remained silent. He recognized his sister's fingerprints all over the sabotage but said nothing, terrified of doing anything that might make her vanish from his life again. Then, one evening, as he sat alone in the study, confused, angry, and torn between the two women he loved most, his phone rang. He picked up. A strange voice, low and firm, came through the line, "Stay away from Tosha. She's not who you think she is." Before Marcus could ask a single question, the line went dead. Disturbed and unsure what to believe, Marcus confronted Tosha that night. "Is there something you're hiding from me?" he asked, searching her face for answers. Tosha looked him straight in the eyes and lied. "No. There's nothing." But Marcus saw it, the flicker of panic, the tension in her body. She was lying. He scrolled through his phone and redialed the strange number. This time, the caller agreed to meet in person. Curiosity mingled with dread. Marcus got dressed and left the house quietly, his mind racing. For the first time, he began to question everything, and maybe, just maybe, his sister had been trying to protect him after all. He arrived at the address, a private office on the outskirts of the city, and met a man who introduced himself as Freddie, the younger brother of one of Tosha's former victims. They spoke for hours. Freddie laid out evidence, names, cases, timelines, and witness accounts. By the time Marcus returned home, his fists were clenched, his eyes red with fury and disbelief. He burst into the house like a storm, ignoring Mirabelle in the lounge sipping wine, and went straight to Tosha's room. He threw the door open, his voice hoarse with rage. "How could you?" Tosha spun around, her face pale. "What are you talking about?" she stammered. "Don't lie to me," he shouted. "Why did you do it? Why did you lie to me, to everyone?" Tosha stuttered, trying to find the right words, but her mouth dried up as the truth closed in around her. The truth was, Tosha despised men. For years, she rejected every man who pursued her, always claiming they were all predators or manipulators. But it ran deeper. Tosha had been part of a vile blackmail scheme, one that involved accusing wealthy men of rape and coercion and then extorting huge sums of money from them. Her accusations had ruined lives. One of her victims, an innocent man, had taken his own life. His wife abandoned him. His children refused to speak to him, and his business collapsed under the weight of the scandal. That man was Freddie's older brother. Freddie, devastated and determined to uncover the truth, launched a quiet investigation. What he found was horrifying. Tosha had accused at least 20 men of rape over a span of several years, all following the same pattern. Every man she'd ever targeted told a similar tale. They were powerful, wealthy, and respected until she entered their lives. Then, like clockwork, it all fell apart. Freddie, the brother of one of her victims, had collected damning evidence, a meticulous web of photographs, transcripts, screenshots, and voice recordings that painted Tosha as a master manipulator. Her strategy was both simple and devastating. She would gain a man's trust, slide into his world with grace and allure, then strike, accusing him of sexual assault and demanding large sums in exchange for silence. Those who paid walked away shamed in private. Those who refused, destroyed, their businesses went under, their marriages shattered, and their reputations were irreversibly ruined. And now, Marcus had almost been next. That was why Freddie had reached out. To save him. As Marcus watched the recordings, including one where Tosha gleefully mocked men and boasted about how easy it was to ruin them, his heart shattered. This was not the woman he knew. Or rather, she was, and he had never really known her at all. Cold, calculated, remorseless. A woman driven by something far deeper than greed. He sat in stunned silence, trying to piece it all together. Why, he whispered to himself. Back at the estate, Mirabelle confronted Tosha head-on. What did Marcus ever do to deserve this? She asked, her voice low and furious. Tosha's answer was sharp and without hesitation. Your brother. He did nothing. He was just in the way. Then why? Mirabel pressed. Because you did everything, Tasha snapped, her eyes burning with fury. You always treated me like a project. Like a poor stray you picked off the street and dressed up to make yourself feel generous. You called me sister, but all I ever was to you was decoration. Mirabel frowned, confused. That's not true. Oh, but it is, Tasha continued bitterly. The day we met your cousin Stephanie, she joked that maybe I was Marcus's girlfriend. And what did you both do? You laughed loudly, like it was the most ridiculous thing you'd ever heard. Mirabel's eyes widened. You even said, Marcus would never stoop that low. Then you pulled out your phone, showing Thandai pictures of the women he had dated before, models, actresses, and society's elite. And I just stood there, smiling like an idiot while you two laughed me into the floor. Tasha's voice cracked for the first time. That moment broke me. I was invisible. A background prop in your life. You could dress me in designer, give me a business, but I was never your equal. Never part of your world. Mirabel stood speechless. Is that why you pretended to be pregnant? She finally asked. Tasha let out a cruel laugh. Of course. I played you both. Lied to your faces. I was never pregnant. The room spun as Marcus felt the weight of her words settle over him. You lied, he whispered. I needed to keep you close, Tasha said, turning to him. You were drifting. Mirabel was pulling you back into her little kingdom. I had no choice. Marcus collapsed onto the couch, his hands trembling. You used my love, and lied about carrying my child. For what? To prove a point. No, Tasha replied. For dignity. I was tired of being the outsider. Tired of being the girl who was never good enough. Look at me now. I've controlled your life, your decisions, and your future. Who's really in charge? She turned to Mirabel, sneering. Your brother's nothing special. Just another pawn. I don't even care about him. Marcus looked up, stunned. Why do you hate men this much? It was a question that had lingered for years. Even Mirabel had asked once, only to be shut out by silence and distance. But now, something shifted in Tasha's face. I hate them, she said, her voice low, because they took everything from me before I even became a woman. Mirabel's expression softened slightly, confused. When I was 14, Tasha said, her voice breaking for the first time, my teacher, someone I trusted, abused me. Repeatedly. She paused, her hands shaking. I told the school. I told my parents. They didn't believe me. Said I was being dramatic. Seeking attention. He stayed. I was transferred. Silenced. Forgotten. Her own father, the one who was supposed to be her shield, became her worst nightmare. After her mother's death, Tasha was left in a vulnerable home, and her father took advantage of that power. With no one to protect her, he abused her repeatedly and eventually began offering her to his drinking friends for entertainment. 4 years, Tasha suffered in silence, carrying wounds no child should ever bear. And every time she tried to speak, no one listened. No one believed her. That pain hardened into fury. That fury became a mission. She grew up despising men, especially those who lived double lives, husbands who chased single women and men who used power to exploit. And so she crafted her own version of justice. With every man she lured and broke, she saw herself as delivering retribution, leaving scars they would carry forever. Turning to Mirabel, she gave a cruel, tired smile. You can keep your precious brother. He was never mine to care about, she said, then walked away toward her room. She packed quickly, moving like someone done pretending. But as she stepped out of the house, a pair of patrol cars pulled into the driveway. In a flash, officers surrounded her and placed her under arrest for conspiracy to defraud the government. Unbeknownst to Marcus or Mirabel, Tasha, along with a ring of cybercriminals, had hacked Mirabel's government-issued laptop weeks earlier. Their target, siphon millions in public funds. While playing the perfect partner, she had quietly planted spyware and passed confidential files to her team. But her accomplices had been caught, and during their interrogation, they revealed her as the brains behind the entire operation. Marcus stood frozen as she was handcuffed. He couldn't believe it. Just when he thought the betrayal couldn't get worse, she shattered the last remnants of trust. Mirabel, too, was stunned. How could someone they had once welcomed as family, someone she had mentored, lived with, and protected, be capable of such cruelty? Yet Tasha didn't flinch. No tears. No struggle. No apologies. When her eyes met Mirabel's, she only gave a soft, cryptic smile. Then the van doors closed, and she was gone just like that. The woman they once trusted had vanished into the justice system without a trace of remorse. In the stillness that followed, Marcus and Mirabel sat in silence, absorbing the magnitude of everything they had just lived through. That day changed them forever. They learned that words, especially careless ones, can scar far deeper than intended. A single moment of mockery, a thoughtless comment, could plant the seed of bitterness in a person's soul. And if left unchecked, it could grow into a storm that consumes everyone in its wake. They realized that trust is a delicate thing. Once broken, it's nearly impossible to mend. Power and wealth cannot substitute for empathy or understanding. True kindness means not just offering people opportunities but treating them with human dignity, respect, and compassion. Because behind even the warmest smile can hide a storm waiting to break. And when it does, it doesn't just hurt the guilty. It wrecks everyone caught in its path. Here comes the end of this story. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more educative stories from us. Bye.